Welcome into No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. I am your host, Joe Zollo. Week 2 of the NFL offseason. Of course, we are doing our offseason free agency preview. Quarterbacks last week, running backs coming up this week. Whole gang is here with a lovely special guest joining us to talk running backs. And if it sounds a lot like last year, well, literally every free agent this year was probably a free agent last year. Let's get into it. Welcome into No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. I am your host, Joe Zollo. As always, Josh and Ryan for the first time in what feels like eons on this show. And
blame Valentine's Day. Sorry.
Yes.
Not because I have a significant other.
Well, work is your significant.
Did you want the world's saddest violin to play at the end of that sentence? Or joining us, I think, for the first time on NPI. I could be wrong. I might have missed a show over the summer, but Miss Jen Eakins. Jen, how are you?
I'm good. I don't know if I've been on some form of this show several times, but I don't know.
I know we've had you on Start Sit Different Day a few times.
Yes.
Joe, I did a show with you, I know, with Chris Allen at one point, and then
I think that was
I don't know. I didn't even know what. Honestly, I thought this was a Women of Fantasy Football show. I didn't even know what I got here. I was like, oh, this is different.
Yeah, we do a lot of those. Yes, I think first time on NPI. Welcome. It's a shit show. And we're gonna have a great time because it's literally
I like a good shit show.
Yeah, it literally it's just a repeat of last year. Add in Derrick Henry.
It feels like that's gonna be the way of the running back for a lot of years now, where it's just gonna be these 1-year deals, and we're dealing with the same people every February.
I can't tell you many guys are gonna get more than a 1-year deal on this list that we have ahead of us. So yes, I would have to agree with that. Teams
we'll
with
disagree with that, but we'll get to it, Joe.
You disagree with that, yeah. Okay, Josh, the Stephen A. Smith of the show. Running back questions. Teams with them. The Cowboys. Tony Pollard, not exactly the lead back. I think a lot of people were expecting him to be. Not many people on this show. Well, actually, me and Josh. Ryan was expecting a nice Tony Pollard year, but
I was expecting better than what we got, but not to the level that other people were projecting.
Yes, no, you were definitely on the tamer side. The Eagles. DeAndre Swift is a free agent. Is it who's under contract? Just Kenneth Gainwell, Josh? That's it, right?
Yeah, the rest are all gone.
Yeah.
Wow.
Austin Scott's a free agent too. Yeah.
And Rashad Penny, don't forget him.
But they did just sign Tyrion Davis-Price to a futures contract.
Look out. Get him. First round draft pick. The Titans, Derrick Henry's a free agent. Almost sounds like he's going to retire with how he was acting and ending his time in Tennessee. I don't know. I'm just saying. His little speech that he had going off just felt like a little like, hey, might retire. The Chargers, Austin Ekeler was bad. That's it. That's it, guys. Austin Ekeler was bad. And they're on
hashtag analysis.
Yeah, and their offensive line could be the worst offensive line in football over the last 3 years. And that's not an exaggeration because nobody can run behind that. The Giants, Saquon Barkley is a free agent along with Josh Jacobs from the Raiders. Those are two of probably the biggest names on this list, including Derrick Henry. The Ravens, J.K. Dobbins, the walking wine glass himself, is a free agent along with Gus the Bus. Have to imagine one of those will be back. Texans, Dameon Pierce he's something. Let me tell you. He's a Florida Gator that played college football at Florida in the 2010s and 2020s. That's exactly who he is. And Devin Singletary, also a free agent. A.J. Dillon, a free agent for the Packers, and Aaron Jones is a little hefty on the price tag, and he's very injured. And Alexander Mattison was not the answer in Minnesota, so will they go out and get somebody here? Okay. Of all these teams, and it could be somebody that's not even on this list in terms of teams that want a running back. Jen, we'll start with you. The biggest splash at the running back position, if there even is a big splash to be made.
Yeah, maybe like a ripple. I don't know, maybe like a little, I don't know. I have two that I think I kind of like. I think the Giants will make a splash if they move on from Barkley. I feel like that's a piece that they use and need. I think the Chargers, I mean, they have a lot of like you said, their O-line is definitely in need of repair, but the rest of that team, there are pieces there. So I feel like the Chargers, if they swap out Ekeler, which it looks like it's going to happen, they make a nice little splash. I'll throw in a third. Well, yeah. I mean, I think the Texans might, get out there and get a couple too. So that's it from the splash department. I think there's other teams that will, like, for example, I'm just going to throw out the Eagles. They're really good at getting cheap running backs. So I don't know if you'd consider that a splash, but I think they're going to end up getting kind of the bargain bin, and they're going to get a couple guys that are going to be fantasy relevant for us.
Sure. Ryan?
I think when paying a running back a lot of money right now and featuring a running back would be a bad decision. And if there's a owner out there who's going to make a bad decision, it's Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. There is going to be a bad decision made in Dallas. It's going to be Saquon, it's going to be Derrick Henry, or it's going to be Josh Jacobs getting paid too much money, assuming they can afford it. But they're going to find a way. I know, Josh.
Dak has Jerry Jones's balls in a vice grip.
and so I saw an article today that Dak is going to reset the quarterback market and all this. So that's going to make it rough, but I'm going to stick to my guns. But Jen hit on a team that I did want to hit on, because while I don't think a splash in Dallas makes any difference, oh my goodness, if the Texans went out and got one of those guys, that is a division franchise changing type move. So the best possible move would be the Texans hopefully getting one of these guys at a good price tag. The bad move is going to be the Dallas Cowboys overpaying one of these guys.
Josh?
So I highlighted two. I highlighted the one that I hope makes the splash, and that's the Texans.
We're all on the same page.
We'll get to who I think they should go after in a little bit. But with the way that offense looks, they have quality wideouts in Tank Dell and Nico Collins. They have a young signal caller in CJ Stroud that has come out slinging and looks damn good doing it. They beefed up the offensive line. They just right now need them to stay healthy, because when they're healthy, they're very good. And they did not have a quality running game at all this year. So you put even a half decent back behind that line, they're going to get some quality yards. And remember, this offense is an extension of Kyle Shanahan and that system. And we know how effective that system can be for running backs. The team that I think will make the biggest splash, not necessarily because of dollars and cents, but by name recognition, is the Ravens. And that's because over the last few years, they just have not gotten a quality running game going behind Lamar Jackson. And with as much money as they have invested in Lamar, they want to and need to keep him healthy. He looked good from the pocket this year, led by his MVP award at the very end of the season. But if they take the pressure off of him to where he only has to run via scrambles and limit the number of design runs, that will be so much better for that offense. And their number one wide receiver right now, Zay Flowers, makes pennies. That means you can actually afford to pay a running back.
So it's crazy. I don't know a team that only ran the football 8 times in the AFC divisional round would want to, go out and pay a big running back, because they don't seem like a run-first offense to me. Really seem pass-heavy with, their 32nd ranked pass attempts over the last 3 seasons in the NFL. I'm not sure they're the team to go out and get a guy like
maybe that's the thing. They look at that and say, hey, we got to get back to Ravens football.
Is that murdering people with our middle linebackers? Is that Ravens football? That's what it sounds like.
Well, right now, Derrick Henry, the odds are plus 175 to go to the Ravens.
I don't think he. No,
I feel like here's another tidbit. Remember when the Ravens would poach the Titans for all of these players in their twilight, and they would still continue to have great years in Baltimore, a la Steve McNair and Derek Mason? Derrick Henry just seems to fit that bill.
He wants to go to a
that out.
contender, and
That's
that's
called
you know,
Ozzie.
one of the only ones out there that is a contender that is missing a running back. So
Dallas.
They have to extend
Spoiler
Dak
alert.
and they have to
Spoiler
extend
alert.
CD Lamb. Both of them are going to break the bank. They will not have the money for this, especially with Micah Parsons' extension coming up too. I'm just
Jerry's gonna find the money. He's gonna find it. Don't test Jerry Jones in his money skills. You want to test Jerry Jones in a spending off? That ain't gonna happen. He's gonna win. He will win. Let me tell you. I also think CJ Stroud's setting a horrible example for today's youth, showing test scores don't even matter. He's setting a horrible example for today's youth.
you guys, I actually took the Wonderlic the other day.
How'd you do?
How'd you do?
So I didn't do horrible, but I didn't finish. So I don't know how that works. Like there's 50 questions. I only did 33, but I got a 27. So like,
Oh, wow. So you
yeah.
were crushing
So
it.
like, and honestly, it was hard. It was a lot of like math stuff that is just not my jam. Like a lot of, if a train leaves at this time and like that stuff is just not my bag.
Listen, all you need to know is that the highest Wonderlic score test ever is Ryan Fitzpatrick, and that's all you need to know about test scores in the NFL.
Absolutely. I just did it for fun. I was sitting here. It's like
it's fun.
You have a
Yeah.
12-minute time limit, and it just like I ended at 33, and I was like,
That's
okay, I
pretty
got a
good.
27. Like that's not horrible, but I also think I guessed well on a few because some of them I was just like, there is like word problem type where I was like, there is no, I'm going to take 7 minutes just doing this problem.
I mean,
And some of them are really easy and stupid. Like some of them are grammatically like, if you don't know this, that's scary. But anyway,
if you're a 5'10" quarterback, half of your throws are guessing. So
Exactly.
Daniel Jones basically just guesses anytime he throws the football.
I just love
So-
that. I didn't read the full report, but they're discouraging people from taking that new test now.
I read
because of
that
what
today
happened with
too.
Stroud.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I read that too. They, yeah.
Are the Panthers leading that campaign?
right.
Is David Tepper's money behind that one?
Yeah, never.
Running through the free agent running backs, the biggest names here: Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, Austin Ekeler. Slight drop, I would say, to DeAndre Swift. Not in skill-wise, I don't think. I think DeAndre Swift is up there in skill-wise, but in terms of just what it felt like last year, after the first 4 weeks, he was almost non-existent. And then we drop off a little bit here. Devin Singletary came on at the end of last year, so he might, get a little bump in what, the recency bias. A.J. Dillon, just a fat booty. That's what A.J. Dillon is. He's just a fat booty. Dude, that's what he is. Let me tell you. That dude could retire, be a stripper, and make more money as a male stripper with that backside. Let me tell you. J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, Clyde Edwards-Helaire on this list solely because he has Ryan's heart.
Well, I was gonna say, and he's one half of AJ Dillon.
Yeah, he's A.J. Dillon's right cheek.
Yeah.
Kareem Hunt, Ezekiel Elliott, Deonta Foreman, Zack Moss, Jerick McKinnon, Antonio Gibson, Dalvin Cook. There is maybe 2 people on this list that will get more than a 1-year deal. This could very well, again, be the exact same list next year. I think, Ryan, as you were saying, Jen, you mentioned it too. It's insane. Now, if anybody has an exact number here, how many running backs do we think actually change teams this offseason for starting jobs? And I'm not going to lie to you, I think there's only maybe 5 guys on this list that could easily have a starting job. Jen, I don't know if you think all 5 of them change, but
I was going to go 4 to 5.
Yeah.
That was where I was off this list. I think that I think Josh Jacobs stays. I think he's likely franchise tagged, so we take him off. I mean, maybe not, right? Weirder things have happened, but yeah, I think Henry changes. I think Barkley changes. I mean, Pollard changes, but I don't know that he's going to be a starter.
That's a really good point.
I think he's iffy. Like, I don't know. I could see him. Well, I'm like, he could go to the Texans. I know we've already talked about them and maybe take over that Singletary role, but I don't know. I don't know where he goes to where he's the clear-cut bell cow lead back. I just, after the inefficiency that we saw last season from him, I mean, granted, from a fantasy perspective, it was brutal. Real life perspective, not great either, right? So, I mean, he was second in the NFL. I'm sure you guys know this, but he was second in the NFL in red zone touches with 71, and he had 5 touchdowns. Like,
I did not know that, and
That's
that
not
makes it
good,
so much
right?
funnier.
I mean, so I don't know. I mean, when you're a scout and you're looking around, I don't know that he's going to get that job. And then Ekeler is kind of iffy too. If he's on a decline, he may end up in a kind of a complementary role. I see, I don't know. I think Ekeler. I don't know. Are we going to go guy by guy, or can I just tell you how I feel about these guys?
No, please,
okay.
just tell us how you feel.
Because I was going to say Ekeler. When I was kind of looking around, I was like, I think Ekeler with the Chiefs would be kind of fun, like as kind of the pass catcher with Pacheco.
No, we don't want that.
I'm not saying.
Nobody wants
Listen,
that.
screw your bias and your like team
Nobody
whatever.
wants that.
I just mean in general.
Ryan
No.
wants that.
No. America doesn't want that. I'm speaking for America.
But I can see it, right? With Pacheco being the lead back.
Definitely.
Ekeler being the pass catcher. Clyde Edwards-Helaire and McKinnon are both gone. But I could also see Ekeler in the Commanders, right? I mean, you've got Anthony Lynn is there, right? Who he worked with, former in LA. So he may go there if Gibson's gone.
No idea.
But I don't know if he'll be a starter, I guess, was my point of this whole thing.
I think it's an interesting point. I went at it from a different perspective than Jen. I looked at the teams Josh listed, and the only one I actually see re-signing is I think DeAndre Swift ends up back in Philly. I think he did well enough and he fits, and I think it's going to work there. But when I look back, of those, Josh, you listed 10 teams, I could see 9 of them having new backs this year. But Jen hit such a good point. That doesn't mean one of these guys is stepping in and being the starter. That's barely today's NFL, and it's certainly not the caliber of guys that are available right now. And then you have the draft to throw another monkey wrench into all of this. I would say of the 10 teams Josh listed, the 10 teams Joe listed at the top of the show, I see Philly re-signing Swift, but I see the other 9 teams with changes at their running back spot.
So here's an interesting thing about Swift. Of all the guys that are probably the top tier guys that we would say on this list could go and start somewhere, that's Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, Saquon, Ekeler, and DeAndre Swift. If there's anybody else you think, please tell me. But I think those are probably the solidified guys that could go somewhere and start. DeAndre Swift is 25. He's a full year younger than the next youngest guy, Josh
25.
Jacobs.
Yep.
Yes. And Josh Jacobs just turned 26. So those are 2 youngest guys. If there's a team that wants to go out and get this guy, Swift seems like the only guy on this list that could sign more than a 1-year deal. Derrick Henry's will be 30.5 by the time the season starts. Saquon will be 27.5. Ekeler will be 29. Pollard will be 27. That's not good multi-year contract years for running backs. Swift is still in an area where you could give him a 2 if you want to stretch it out to 3, maybe 2 and a team option with a third or a player option. That seems like the guy you want to target for cheaper money, and you could argue some of the best skill after Saquon Barkley on this entire list. That feels like the guy you'd want to target. So Philly can get him at a discount. Fuck yeah. But does that not feel like a Baltimore running back? Doesn't that feel like a way better version of J.K. Dobbins? Really?
For a team that doesn't really throw to their running back, I like
Swift doesn't. Yeah, Swift is so talented as a pass catcher. He was wasted in Philly. I mean, he had 49 targets there, which it really didn't even feel like that. And that was give or take 20 plus more than what they threw to Miles Sanders last year. I think he's going to want to go to a team that's actually going to utilize his skill set.
What do you guys think about?
We're going to find out if Kellen Moore is actually going to do that. What
do you guys think about the Browns? So Chubb's not guaranteed, right?
I was going to say,
Hunt's going to be gone.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Fun fact, Derrick Henry had as many receiving yards as DeAndre Swift last year. Exact same number.
Interesting. Well, I personally, as a University of Georgia homer, would love to see Swift and Chubb back together there in the Browns. That would be nice
awesome.
for my heart.
And then go get Sony Michel. Just get the whole band back together.
All of them.
Again, though,
Todd Gurley.
Chubb's going to need to take a pay cut. All the Cleveland articles right now are that Chubb's a cut candidate, only because of the sheer dollar amount they have on him combined with the sheer amount of money they're wasting at quarterback. So the issue is you're going to have Chubb take a pay cut, and then are you really going to fork that money back into running back to get Swift? I agree, Jen. I think it'd be an awesome fit, especially what we saw out of a two-headed monster from the Browns last year. Right. Obviously not to the caliber of Nick Chubb and DeAndre Swift. That would just be filthy, plain and simple. So it's such a great fit, and I'm so glad you brought up the Browns because that is a team I wanted to bring up because what if Chubb is released? Like, what happens at that point with the NFL in general?
I think he's too much of a leader for that team.
I agree. And I think he'll happily take the discount based on everything I know of the team and everything I've read. I think he's going to take a pay cut, and I think this is much ado about nothing. But my goodness, there's a little bit of smoke there, and that makes it very interesting, certainly for all my friends in Northeast Ohio who have lived and died with every run Nick Chubb has done over the last 4 years.
And I feel like Jerome Ford did enough last year to prove that, I mean, he can be a viable, like, 1B type. I'm not saying he's like a starter. He's did
barely a backup.
Well, but I mean,
he got hurt though, right?
An aging Nick Chubb, which, and I don't really know that aging is the right word here. I
was just about to say, my God, how old is he? Like, I feel like
I don't think he's old. He's just coming off a big injury.
He's 28.
Okay, well,
he'll be 28,
and yet he still averages over 5 yards a carry every freaking year.
Yeah, he's fucking ridiculous. Like, I'm not. That's obviously, but NFL
that's
teams
what I'm saying.
Like
Jerome Ford with his pass catching ability, his ability just behind a pretty solid offensive line does just enough. He's not Nick Chubb, sure. I mean, he's a backup running back that can, moonlight as a starter if needed.
His vision is horrible. He averaged less than 4 yards per carry behind that offensive line. His vision is horrible.
That's better than AJ Dillon. He's only 3.4.
Better than Rashad White.
Guys, what are we saying here? What are we saying here? All right. I admire that. But yeah, I mean, Chubb is a cut candidate. His cap hit's almost 16 million and his dead cap hit is 4. Yeah. That's very real that he could be cut. And I mean, potentially a trade candidate. Like maybe they try and trade him.
I think the more likely scenario is they add 2 years to the deal and spread the money out a little bit.
That would make sense.
Retire Brown. That makes sense.
What it's worth, I think 4 running backs. Since you just completely skipped over me, Joe.
What? Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't really care about you. If that hasn't been apparent in this entire relationship over the last 7 years. Something that I found alarming when looking at the stuff for the show was the salary cap and the base salaries for the top running backs in the league. Because all of these guys on this list could vie for like top 5 running back money, and I mean that wholeheartedly. McCaffrey is one, just under 12 million. Obviously, that makes sense. Nick Chubb, 11.775. Fair. If you want to have Nick Chubb be the second highest, fair, honestly. Aaron Jones at 11.1. That feels dirty. That doesn't feel right. Alvin Kamara, 10.2. Okay. Sure. I guess. Still can't average 4 yards per carry, but sure. Jonathan Taylor, drop off, 7.8. David Montgomery, 5.2. This is where it gets funny. Nyheim Hines, 4 million. Miles Sanders, 4 million. James Conner, Arizona's getting him at a deep discount. That's a great contract for them. 3.7. Alexander Madison, 3.3. That rounds out your top 10. And if you're wondering who's on the cusp, how about Jamal Williams, Samaje Perine, and Jeff Wilson? Those are your top 13 running backs in cap hit for the 2024 season currently under contract.
And they all, like every one of the guys you mentioned got signed last year. So it just shows how bad, like Jeff Wilson, I think, re-signed last year. Jamal Williams certainly did. Samaje Perine went to Denver. So it just shows that running back contracts have just dipped. So every mediocre contract that everybody wants rookies, plain and simple. So.
I mean, but that's the problem. There aren't very many good ones coming out this year.
Yeah. And I was about to bring that up. There now, again, unofficial 40 times, obviously. We haven't seen them at the combine yet. That'll come next week. There's one guy under a 4.5 and he's at a 4.49. These guys aren't very fast. And it's the guy Jonathan Brooks out of Texas, 6 foot, 207 pounds. I mean, again, your top guy, Blake Corum, his 40's listed at 4.55. Average. It's not breakaway speed. I don't think anybody thought Corum had breakaway speed on him. But 5'8", 213, like the build of these guys is pretty good. Audric Estime, 5'11", 227. That's a bowling ball of a human. He runs a 4.55. The kid out of Bucky Irving out of Oregon, 4.49. He's 5'10", 195. He's a twig. There are not a lot of good running back options on paper in this draft. It is a good point that some teams might just take flyers on these guys, but you're not expecting many of these guys to be a Bijan, who was very clearly going to be a front runner until Arthur Smith decided, no. It's going to be interesting to see if these lower end free agent running backs Deonta Foreman was thrust into a starting role for a little bit. Antonio Gibson, does he maybe get a second chance somewhere else?
I hope so.
I agree. I agree with that. Does Clyde Edwards-Helaire, because he has first round price tag on him. I'm just saying, like, there's a chance that these guys, like, there's a chance Ryan is hardcore sucked into Clyde Edwards-Helaire next year. There's a good chance.
There's nothing that can happen that would do that for me. Like, I am so far gone on him. Like, there's nothing that could happen that he would.
Jen,
you
have no idea
how to pass block, so it doesn't matter.
You don't know how deep Ryan is into the CE.
And what's funny is I hated him his rookie year. And then when everybody else hated him, I'm like, I like him now.
He's just done nothing to make any. He just. And
he's the long and short of it is he can't overcome his own size. Plain and simple. He is little. Tiny. And
he can't block.
Well, he can't block. There was the whole thing that he had the spleen injury his second year where he was down to 165 pounds or something. Like, he ain't built for this, plain and simple.
What even is a spleen?
I'm going to just drive the bus for a second just because it's in my brain. And we haven't one guy we just haven't talked about that I think is interesting is Zack Moss.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if recency bias, if he's going to get some sort of deal, but I just feel like, he had a career year, right? But he's never really been able, I don't know. I don't know that he's going to beat out whoever he's going against for that RB1 spot. I guess it just depends where he goes. Do you guys think, one thing I did see was possibly the Patriots as a compliment to Ramondre.
No, that's okay. No,
I know you're a fan, so you don't want it, but I'm just saying, I don't know. I just think he's interesting. I don't know if he's going to kind of parlay what he did into something, tangible where it really shouldn't be. I don't know. Are you guys believers? I don't.
I think he's a good complementary back. I don't think he can be the leader.
Right.
But yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think he's one of these, to go back to what Jen brought up earlier, is that there's not a lot of starters because they're all going to end up, I think he and someone else are going to end up together somewhere. I think he could also be a guy, it's pretty foregone. A.J. Dillon's gone. I don't think a bad compliment to Aaron Jones would be Zack Moss. Something along those lines where he goes and it's already established guy. I like to also play the stupid, I follow the coaching game. I could see Zack Moss maybe with the Giants as one of the backs to replace Saquon Barkley. So just one of those things where, these are guys who were with him when he originally started in Buffalo. Now they have this opening in New York. So.
Here's the pairing that I have for Zack Moss. I have him and Ekeler teaming up in Dallas. Because we know Jerry Jones likes names. Ekeler didn't do himself any favors to get a big contract.
And Zack Moss is one of them. Big name.
But huge. Ekeler is.
Jerry Rice level.
Ekeler is enough of a name that they can get him at a decent price for even if it's just 1 year. We know McCarthy is still going to throw to running backs. Tony Pollard had 67 targets last year. So it's not like Eckler's pass catching prowess will be wasted. But it's just this class just isn't deep enough that I think that they're going to be like, oh, let's get a running back in the middle rounds, blah, blah, blah. But I think they could go through and bring in like an Austin Ekeler and then pair him with a Moss on like a 2-year deal, right? Because they saw last year that without like a bigger back that could like thump the way that Zeke could, it slowed the entire offense when they weren't just chucking the ball 60 times a game. And I think this way it allows them to better the offense around them, since they're going to have to pay Dak whatever the fuck he wants and then extend CeeDee Lamb, who's heading into year 5, I think. So like this just to me feels like it's a quality backfield at a bargain price that makes sense.
I could see Jerry getting suckered in. Like I said, someone, is going to see what Moss did last year and then decide to pay him. And I could see Jerry being the one to do that.
I mean, even if it's like a 2-year, $10 million contract, like I don't think that's asinine by any means.
That puts him as the 6th highest cap hit of any running back in the NFL, John. Let's not get crazy now.
Assuming they're moving on from their older backfield, I think Moss in Miami is a nice fit with Devon Shane, assuming Mostert
is he fast enough?
But they all signed 2-year deals. That's what I'm saying. So like Mostert
and Jeff Wilson are still under contract.
Yeah, I did not realize that. Okay.
Yeah. So I feel like, Jerry's going to want to go get Zeke and just say, hey, we're going to retire as a Cowboy. And I also need Hutch to stop having so much positive energy on this show. I don't like it. I don't like.
This is the most positive people have been about fantasy running backs in a long time.
I know.
Right?
That's fun, Josh. Not 1, not 2, but 3 exclamation points is really throwing me for a loop. I don't like it. No, the hi Hutch. Hello. It is interesting in the last question before we get into landing spots. Because I have just a funny feeling that Josh put this in here because he hates Joe Mixon's efficiency and who he is. Is this final of the year Joe Mixon gets released, or does he take another pay cut?
Anybody? I think he takes another pay cut personally.
I just can't. Like
Same.
I can't draft it. Well, first of all, I try not to draft scumbags. It's not easy. I will draft Tyreek Hill, and I know it's completely not fair to do one and not the other, but I draw the line at Mixon, certainly Deshaun Watson, but with Mixon, I've never I don't know. I just can't come back from it. I won't draft him. But I mean, I guess if they want to keep him, I don't know. You're
not missing much, Jen.
Yeah, I'm just indifferent with him. I'm just over him, to be honest. Great analysis, but I'm just over him.
No, that's fair. The Bengals seem like the keep the band together team a lot. I don't see them letting Mixon go until he's ready to hang him up. So I think it's another pay cut, another boring 4 yards per carry. Nobody's
then all of us,
it's not even 4 yards per carry.
I was going to say, then all of us clamoring for whoever the backup is and then guessing wrong Brown. And not getting it right. Yeah.
And he's fucking Joe Mixon's going to finish as the RB7, the ugliest RB7 on planet Earth. Again.
Yeah.
Absolutely disgusting.
That's honestly what I think is going to happen. I think he'll end up taking another pay cut. He's one of the leaders on the team. And and I'm really starting to come around on the fact that I think that the Bengals are just going to franchise tag T. Higgins and just try to make another run with a healthy Burrow. That's what I think.
Yeah. Will he be healthy?
For one
game? Will he be? Yeah.
I don't know if Orlando Brown still is left tackle. Probably not. So.
You could give him the greatest left tackle, left guard, center in planet Earth. Apparently, if you play in Paycor Stadium, you don't know how to play offensive line if Joe Burrow's your quarterback. So it really apparently does not matter. Landing spots. I'm very interested here. This is going to be a lot of fun. So we'll go team by team. Who you think is going to land in that spot? You can have 1 to 2 guys if you don't have a specific name. Jen, we'll start with you. The New York Giants. Who do you have going to the lovely Big Blue Squad in New Jersey, home of the 2026 FIFA World Cup Finals for some fucking reason, MetLife Stadium? Who do you have going there?
Honestly, that's to me one of the toughest ones because there's a lot of people that can end up there, and it may be several people. We've talked about a few. I think Swift might stay in the NFC East and end up there. I think Singletary could end up there possibly. I don't see anyone big. You know what I mean? I don't see Derrick Henry going there. I don't see Barkley staying there, and I don't see Jacobs going there. So the rest of it, like we said, is going to be a hodgepodge of a couple guys. But yeah, so I'm gonna go Swift, Singletary, kind of as my top 2 options.
Ryan.
agree completely. I try to figure worst case scenario on this one. Give me the full Buffalo reunion. Zack Moss, Devin Singletary both end up in the Giants.
You really are just a coaching slut.
I am the worst analyst on these shows because all I do is follow coaching staffs.
Such a slut. Josh.
I mean, I'm kind of right there with you, Ryan. I think
My
Singletary
God.
ends up there. And honestly, I had the exact same pick last year because I felt that to build a team, you don't pay a running back, right? Well, they ended up trying to run it back after that surprise playoff run, which is why they brought Saquon back. Well, paying a running back was never going to be the answer. And look what happened. They suck. They're picking at number 6 this year for a reason. If that right there doesn't tell you paying a running back is not going to get you or maintain your success, I don't know what will. So from that perspective, I think they just move on from Saquon. They go bargain bin shopping and they bring in somebody that has shown that he can be an efficient running back and knows the system that Brian Dable wants to run. And I think that's Devin Singletary.
I'm here for the fun answers. All right. Some of them can be serious, some of them can be true. I'm not here to follow the coaches. All right. How about a guy stays in division? Antonio Gibson. I don't know. Feels good. Feels right. Can use him in a lot of different areas. I don't know. It would suck for his fantasy value.
Over 200 carries, so
yeah.
Plausible.
Sure. And then I think they probably draft a guy in the 3rd or 4th round.
That's what I think they'll end up doing is kind of getting one of these veterans on like a 1, maybe a 2-year deal for somewhat cheap, and then draft a guy in the middle rounds.
The interesting vet is Deonta Foreman if they want a big body, and then they go get a...
Well, considering that offensive line, a big body may not be a bad idea.
Can he play guard?
Deonta Foreman, can you slide into right tackle for Evan Neal, actually? All right, next one. Dallas Cowboys staying in the division. Jen.
I am going to say if Josh Jacobs is not franchise tagged, I'm going Josh Jacobs to the Cowboys.
D-Town. Brian.
It was coin toss between Jacobs and Derrick Henry for me, but I just feel like Jerry Jones's eyes are going to get enormous when he sees an available Derrick Henry, and he's going to go get him. So.
Josh.
Yeah, I already said my answer. I think it's Ekeler and Moss there. That's what I think. I think you combine the name value with a moderately priced contract. And I think like Jacobs, Henry, I think those guys are still good enough to where they're going to want top of the market running back money. I think last year proved that Austin Ekeler doesn't have that leverage.
I have Ezekiel Elliott going back home.
I almost did that. If it's not Henry, I do think Zeke ends up back there.
And then J.K. Dobbins will join him as the off back. Change of pace.
Dobbins scares me with that Achilles.
Yeah, but you know who doesn't care about that? Jerry Jones.
I looked at both those names, Jeff.
Yeah. If there's one guy that doesn't give a shit about that, I would be Jerry Jones, my friend.
I can definitely see a Zeke reunion. It felt like they were kind of close last year. Like they really didn't want to part ways. It just kind of became a money issue. But I think with 1 year away, I think that money issue went away. And
to be fair, as much as I hated him in New England because he took away from Ramondre Stevenson.
He was good when he played.
No. When he had the backfield to himself, he was good.
That's fair.
Just like when Ramondre Stevenson had the backfield to himself, he was good. But when Stevenson got hurt, Zeke had a great game against Pittsburgh. He played well down the stretch. I mean, I'm not saying he's rejuiced or anything like that, but I think he finishes one.
You say that like he's been on steroids,
right?
He could have been. We don't know. Urban Meyer, Ohio State. There's no fucking rules there. Come on.
The rose-colored glasses we have for Ezekiel Elliott right now because he was not good. He had some passing game work that made him look good.
That's fair.
He did not rush for over 100 yards one time. He scored a rushing touchdown in 3 separate games, and that's it. He was bad last year. No.
He was better down the stretch. He's
not in running.
No. Look at his offensive line. Listen, the 4 of us and David Andrews were the offensive line. All right. Okay. I watched that for 17 games. Yeah. It was not pretty. Jen.
Yes.
Eagles. What do we think?
Okay. So I've got 2 names for the Eagles. I'm going to go Tony Pollard because they have the tush push, so they don't need him in the red zone.
There
This
you
is
go.
true.
You don't need a big back.
So you
His
got Tony
71
Pollard
red zone
there,
shot just turned to 7.
right? Then the other one I have is J.K. Dobbins. I just feel like I said earlier, they like to kind of dumpster dive bargain bin. I think he'll be cheap. They may throw him in there.
I like it. Ryan?
I think DeAndre Swift stays put. I think they're going to get something done. So I'm going DeAndre Swift staying in Philadelphia.
Josh?
I also think Swift ends up staying. I mean, he's a Philly kid. I think he's going to want a bigger contract. The Eagles were willing to pay Miles Sanders, just not as much as he ultimately ended up signing for. And I think the way that this RB market is shaping, I think Swift is just going to be like, you know what? To sign for $1 million less and stay home, I think I'll end up doing that. Kellen Moore is not afraid to throw to running backs. I mean, he's typically between 15 and 18% target share to his running backs. Even Ekeler last year had 76 targets. If you presume that Swift, when he goes back, is the lead back, I think we get back to the pass catching ability that Swift flashed in Detroit. And that really is how you utilize DeAndre Swift. So I think it can work.
I have another tandem. I like Devin Singletary as the lead guy, and then bring in an old Jerick McKinnon for pass down work. You say, like the man wasn't just RB10 like 2 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, with Andy Reid, there's a difference.
What do you mean? You're telling me Andy Reid and Kellen Moore aren't the same person?
Not even a little bit.
No? Andy Reid looks like he ate Kellen Moore, but you don't know. You don't know. We could see. Who knows? All right, now to the team that I'm interested to hear because everybody wants them to make a big splash, the Houston Texans. Jen, is this the first big name we see come off
Saquon
of
Barkley.
your board? Yeah. Ryan?
Saquon Barkley.
Josh?
I'm also on the Saquon train. As I mentioned with this young offense,
should.
They're not paying anybody. This is a situation where they have the luxury to front load a running back contract before they need to pay any of these stars.
I like Saquon.
And even then,
as
you're
well. I
still
think that
not
makes
paying
more
him like
sense.
top of the line wide receiver money. So it's still a fraction of future Nico Collins extension.
I think it's Saquon. If they don't go Saquon, Josh Jacobs, it still doesn't feel good. But like, I think Saquon's by far the answer. And then, I mean, Dameon Pierce still under contract, I guess, so he's the change of pace guy. But Saquon Barkley's the answer, easily, 100%. Titans. Obviously, presumed to be moving on from Mr. Derrick Henry. Jen, who do you have?
I'm going to throw out Antonio Gibson.
Okay.
I feel like, so he played college ball in Memphis. He's familiar. I think if he fixes the fumbles, I think he's an RB1 for that team. So I like Gibson there.
Ryan?
So I had a lot of trouble with this one. I know I said earlier I could see Moss and Singletary both end up with the Giants. This could be a team that's willing to take a shot on Moss as well, just because they're not going to put a ton of money into this position. It's also how do they see themselves? They fired a moderately successful head coach. So it's such a weird situation. Gibson feels right. I could even see them taking the team to take a flyer on Dalvin Cook.
Oof.
Yeah.
Oof is right.
Yeah.
Oof is correct.
But
Apt analysis,
I'll
Jen.
erase Zack Moss from my Giants pick and say Zack Moss here. I forgot I had already put him there. So Zack Moss.
Josh.
This is where they're going to bargain shop. They're going to bargain shop. This is a rebuilding team. There's literally no reason to pay any type of money for a big name guy. The three names that I am linking here are J.K. Dobbins, A.J. Dillon, Deonta Foreman. They're kind of bigger guys that can pair well with Tajay Spears, who it seems like they really want to get involved in this offense. And I think he's really fucking good. So I think you just kind of need a compliment to him. I'm still not 100% of whether or not J.K. Dobbins is going to be able to come back, let alone come back with any level of burst after an Achilles injury. But Deonta Foreman has played in Tennessee. He did great in Tennessee. He's kind of on his one-year contract trip around the NFL. Heading back to Tennessee might not be the worst idea. A.J. Dillon just kind of has always had that sort of like Derrick Henry light, and light in a lot of different ways, production included. So it wouldn't surprise me if he ended up as a substitute there in Tennessee.
Yeah, I like it. I like AJ Dillon. I did get the big back to complement Tajay. I think there's a chance they go in the draft and they get just a fat motherfucker essentially to complement Tajay Spears and to go
Braylon Allen would look really good.
I was going to say Braylon Allen.
Tajay Spears, yeah.
Well, I'm just looking at this list from WalterFootball.com. He actually does a very good job. Kendall Milton, Georgia guy, 6'1", 220. He's a big motherfucker. It's a big boy. Or if you really wanted to, because I think he will fall based on where he played college football, and it was at the University of New Hampshire. I know he's going to fall because I know who went to the University of New Hampshire. There were kids I went to high school with that went to the University of New Hampshire. That's the level of football there. But this guy got a combine invite. Dylan Laub, I believe is how you say his last name.
My brother-in-law played at University of New Hampshire.
Did he?
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, that's funny.
Awesome.
And a side fact, this has nothing to do with what we're doing right now, but I'm super stoked. My little nephew, who is not little in any way, he is a freshman at Pitt, and he had his first presser today, and I was like hysterically crying watching him do.
That's awesome.
He had his first little presser, and they were asking him all these questions, and it was adorable.
That's
he's
cool.
he's 18, but he's like 6'4", 260. Like he's amazing. He's a defensive end, and
Is he now?
he's a freshman at Pitt. Anyway, sorry.
6'4",
Total sidetrack.
260.
Yeah.
Good
No, I think he
size
might be.
for an
I think he,
18-year-old.
18 years old.
I think he might be 240 actually. 6'4", 240.
That's
But yeah,
still
Oh
big
no!
for an 18-year-old.
Oh no!
yeah, he's a defensive end.
Damn.
I think in a year he could easily put on 20 pounds and be
Good for him.
Yeah, he's not thick by any stretch. Like he probably needs to gain a little bit if he wants to.
Congratulations.
Gregory Rousseau.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like to see, like little league to like there's dreams of it, and then to get
press conferences.
yeah to get a
press
full
conferences
ride
that-
to a D1
yeah.
school is like absolute insanity.
Oh,
That has
fantastic.
a very good history.
Yeah,
as well.
no, absolutely. He got he had many options, but he's super stoked to be at Pitt. He's loving life, and he had his first little presser day. It was absolutely adorable.
That's fantastic.
Not to mention some pretty good guys that have come out on their defensive line.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yeah, unfortunately, the
Recent
guy
years.
the guy that recruited him just left for the Colts like last week. So he's a little bummed because that was kind of the reason he went, was the D-line coach, and he just went to the Colts. But oh well, he'll be fine.
RIP.
It's the business. It's the way it works.
It is.
Yep.
Well, sorry to shit on UNH. It's
all good.
Yeah. No, D1 AA. So I think Dylan Love goes under the radar. He's 6'1", 225. He was apparently a Senior Bowl standout, and he gets if you get a combine invite for a glorified D2 school, fair. Like honestly, fair.
Yeah.
So I think that could be a guy where maybe they just try and go, like Josh said, dumpster diving, but for rookie contracts. So like guys that they're paying hundreds of thousands instead of like, a couple million. So next up, the Los Angeles Chargers under new head coach Jimothy Harbaugh. Jen, who you got?
I'm going to go with the tandem, the former Raven tandem of J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. I think that you've got the Harbaugh connection there. They go to the brother. I don't know. I mean, I like it.
Yeah,
I think
sure.
that, I think they go with those two.
Ryan.
I think Josh Jacobs wants to stay West Coast, ends up in the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, basically home games for him anytime Raiders fans go there. So, Josh?
I know that the Chargers are over $45 million over the salary cap. They're not signing any free agents and running back.
The cap doesn't matter. The cap is crap. It literally doesn't matter.
I mean, they're going to save some money, presumably, by cutting Mike Williams. But I do like the idea of Gus Edwards going there. I think that would be.
I actually had Gus as the complimentary back there.
Yeah,
as well.
I think that would be a really good spot for Gus. And then, I mean, everybody is linking Blake Corum to the Chargers at some point.
You
in the
took my
draft.
answer.
Yep.
You put
Gus and
Blake Corum there with Gus Edwards. I actually really like that tandem there for that offense. I think that would be a really good pairing.
they will sign the Chargers will sign an absolute no name, and they're drafting Blake Corum, and he will be their starter on day one. Because that's just a Jim Harbaugh move.
That's a Jim Harbaugh move.
That's a Jim Harbaugh move, and you know what he's gonna do? JJ McCarthy at 5.
No, he's not.
Stop.
No, that's not happening. Could you imagine though? Could you imagine?
They did that.
Guys, JJ McCarthy is the best Michigan quarterback of all time. Okay? You're telling me you don't want JJ McCarthy over poor old Justin, I went to Oregon, Herbert? Come on. Guys, let's be real here. Jeez. No, I really do think it's Corum goes there.
Yeah.
Raiders, Jen, what you got?
As I said earlier, I think Josh Jacobs gets franchise tagged.
Okay, Brian.
AJ Dillon. You got Luke Getsy there now. I think he's seen Dillon when he was in Green Bay, seen playing against Dillon in Chicago. So I think AJ Dillon ends up there.
Josh.
I think they stick with Jacobs. I don't know if they franchise him again, but I think by bringing Antonio Pierce, keeping him as the head coach after the interim run, he wants the leaders of this team. That's Max Crosby. That's Devontae Adams. That's Josh Jacobs. So I think that he's going to preach to Tom Telesco, I want my leaders in place. So I think even if it's like we'll say like a 3-year deal, that really is like a 2-year deal, I think that would be enough to keep Josh Jacobs in place. And by releasing Jimmy G, they're going to save a shit ton of money on the cap. And they'll likely end up with either a quarterback like Gardner Minshew, like you guys talked about, or potentially even a JJ McCarthy.
I like Jacobs to stay there too. It feels right. I don't know what they'll do with him, but it doesn't feel like he's going to go anywhere. I don't know if there's a market for him that's better than Vegas in terms of like pay. I really don't. So
he had his best games with Pierce. So
head
coach. So
I mean, nobody has good games under Josh McDaniels.
Well, yeah, that is true.
Yeah. Last 3 teams: Ravens. Jen.
The King, Derrick Henry.
Salute, Ryan.
The odds feel right, but I really just feel like Dallas is going to go after Henry, so I have Tony Pollard going here.
Josh.
I also have Derrick Henry going to the Ravens because he wants to win, and that's going to be his best chance to win. He does his best work in December, late in the season. That's when they need him the most.
I'm going DeAndre Swift. It feels like a DeAndre Swift team. Just tiny toothpicks playing on that offense just feels right. Swift, Zay Flowers, Bateman. None of them are really built. None of them are really jacked up outside of the tight ends. So it just feels right. Last 2, Packers. Jen.
Dante Foreman?
Question mark. Yeah, I mean.
Sure.
Fuck it, we ball, says Green Bay.
Yeah.
So true. Ryan?
I actually had Foreman there as well. I also think Gibson could possibly end up there. Not both, one or the other sort of thing, but Foreman makes a lot more sense. So.
Josh?
I have them going the route of the draft. I think this is what the Packers always do when they identify a position of need. They hit it, and they hit it hard. We've seen it several years, both at running back when they drafted Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones in the exact same season. We've seen it at wide receiver several times when they drafted Wicks and Jaden Reed, and they drafted another guy, and they did it even before that with the class that ended up with MVS there. Like, they'll draft 2 or 3 guys at the same position in the same draft. Hell, they did it at tight end last year. Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave in the same draft. Like,
and
one
Tucker
of them's
Kraft's
bound to hit.
Dog.
Yeah, so one of them's bound to hit, and I think that will be the route that the Packers take.
And you have this draft where it's going to be so RB heavy in the 3rd, 4th round where you don't even have to spend early picks to land any of these guys. So.
And that's what I think they'll ultimately end up doing. I know they like Aaron Jones. He's a leader for that team. He's oft injured. They'll figure out something with the contract, but A.J. Dillon's good as gone.
I have to agree on the draft route. I don't really see. I already have Foreman going somewhere else. It makes sense that he could be in Green Bay as well, but it does feel like can we find a young guy that isn't going to get injured every 7 snaps that we play him to, appease Aaron Jones. So Audric Estime, I like Trey Benson out of Florida State. I mean, those are guys I don't really know. We'll dive more into that in a month and get a lot smarter people on that know the draft process and know these guys much better than we do. But those
Smarter
are just the
than
names that
us,
stick
not
out.
Jen. Let me be perfect.
Yes.
Oh,
Did
I have not done one iota. Of
Okay,
what
good.
Like
Then we're
if
all
they-
on the same page.
If they didn't go to Georgia or they're not like the
I love
top
that.
5 names out there, I don't know them right now.
If-
I'm not there yet.
That's
I'm on
exactly where I am.
Yeah.
Not the Georgia part, the top 5
Yeah.
names part.
I'm on the Mel Kiper draft strategy. If they didn't play in the national championship, I don't know who they are.
Yeah.
That's the Mel Kiper draft strategy. It's worked out, but
Yeah. Hell of a career there.
yeah, hell of a career. So yes, I would have to agree with you. Also, anybody from Georgia, I'm just like, yeah, they're probably good. Like they're fine.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, Georgia just kind of checks the boxes.
Mhm.
Any guy over 300 pounds, I'm like, all right, we're fine.
Yep.
You're good. All right, last one. Minnesota Vikings. Jen.
That's a hard one. I don't like.
Yes.
I mean, I wrote down AJ Dillon, but I don't know. Maybe draft. I don't know what they're gonna do honestly because they kind of
Suck.
shat the bed, I guess, last year with Madison, and then I don't know.
Bad.
So yeah, I wrote down AJ Dillon. my confidence in that is not big, but that's who I wrote down.
I feel like
Ryan.
this is a big fantasy spot. You got Justin Jefferson. You're probably going to have Kirk Cousins back. One of these running backs plays fantasy, even host a fantasy show. Austin Ekeler to the Minnesota Vikings.
Yikes.
I don't hate
Josh.
that actually.
I think it's a great
Oh.
fit.
I
Yeah.
don't like it. Imagine going from one bad offensive line to another bad offensive line willingly. Imagine that. Josh.
He just needs to catch the ball.
This is where I think Tony Pollard can fit in very well here. They signed Alexander Madison to a 2-year deal, so he's still there. We saw Ty Chandler with some juice. He's also their kick returner. I think this is going to be a scenario where they ultimately end up with a 3-headed monster, and Tony Pollard handles a lot of that underneath work that TJ Hawkinson typically has, while Hawkinson gets back into shape with his knee injury that he suffered towards the end of the year.
Oh, and then you can
That's right
trade Tony Pollard at the trade deadline and steal people from.
Yeah.
Oh, wow! Look at you, Josh. No, I do agree. Of the big
Chess, not checkers, baby.
Yeah. of the big names here, I think Pollard's, and I've actually have not put a spot for Ekeler. I don't really know what's going to happen with him, but I do think Pollard makes the most sense here. I don't like it. Somebody still needs to take some load off of him and actually take the.
Well, that's the
blunt-
thing. We've seen Madison do okay in a backup role. He just
Yeah, but-
couldn't get it done in the red zone.
Yeah, but Pollard needs to be
Neither
the
can
B.
Pollard though. So then what?
Yeah.
As proven.
Yeah,
You don't
Po-
need that when you got Jefferson and Addison and really Hawkinson.
He
when
had
comes back.
fucking CD Lamb. What do you mean? He had CD Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Jake Ferguson. They were arguably the most pass-happy offense in the NFL.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
And
Like,
a better quarterback than
as
Yeah.
as the running back, he didn't need to be effective because they had other pieces. The Vikings offense really is the exact same way.
I don't like my pick to Minnesota now. I don't want to agree with what you just said. Austin Ekeler, I'm on Ryan's train now. I don't want to agree simply out of spite that I hated that analysis completely. All right, Austin Ekeler to the Vikings. Here we go. Skull. Boom. Fuck it. I guess I'm drafting Austin Ekeler in like the 3rd round next year, guys, because he's gonna fall.
I
Well,
think
look at
he's
that.
gonna possibly fall farther than the 3rd, but
Yes.
that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah.
Look, if he falls past the 3rd round, ooh, that's dangerous for me. He might be the 4th running back on my roster in the 6th round, and that's going to be scary. Let me tell you, that's going to be a scary day for everybody when that happens. And I still get Keenan Allen in the 4th round as my wide receiver 1, just like Ryan and I plan every year,
Every year.
every single year. Well, Jen, thanks for coming on. This was a beautifully timed show.
Yeah.
This is like the first time we've been even close to an hour in a long time. So,
Are you
thank
guys
for
usually
coming on.
over or under?
Way over.
Over. Way
Very
over.
I'm
Way
pretty
over.
concise. I'm not.
You were there.
I'm not a rambler. I think it's because
God.
coming from the podcast that I do, like I'm in and out. I'm not
I
a
love it.
rambler. I'm
I love
concise.
it. It's nice to have the non-rambler next to the 3 idiots. It's perfect.
Yeah.
It really just makes for a perfect quad. And the nice thing too in the offseason, not a lot of questions. Those were normally the big things that really pushed us over in season because our listeners ask so many questions and we get to every single one of them and we love them, but that's what normally pushes us over there. One time before we wrap up, where can everybody find you, what you do, your work, etc.?
I am at 4for4 exclusively, non-compete exclusively. That is only, so yeah,
Under
I'm at
contract.
4for4. All my stuff is there. I am on the Twitter/X at Jen Eakins NFL. That's about it. I'm normally on the Most Accurate podcast. We're on a small hiatus at the moment. We will be back, I don't know, at some point here in the next month or so. Probably before that, but yeah, that's it. That's where I am.
And be sure to catch her nephew on Saturdays in the fall.
Yes, I don't know.
Playing
I don't know if he's gonna play. Like,
No, probably not.
D-line usually they don't. Freshmen don't play, but yeah, I'm gonna throw his little YouTube thing here up in the chat for you guys.
Yes,
and,
do.
just so you
Yeah.
can, it's 4 minutes of my little nephew talking. It's pretty cool.
I love
I
it.
just love
It's
that
awesome.
you still call him your little nephew.
Yeah,
He's 18. I mean, you know, like
And he's 6'4", 240
yeah, I mean,
pounds.
he's my sister's kid. Like he's little to
I love
me.
it.
Yeah,
He just
That's-
turned 18 too. Like he's not even. Yeah, it's crazy. But anyway, yeah.
go him.
I do want to
Yeah.
give one quick shout out to Joe Ortiz, Joe Zollo's burner account. I think this could have just been the tagline for the show. RB
Yeah.
looks pretty bleak next year.
It's bad.
Sounds
could've
about
just-
right.
Had that up the whole time.
Why do we even
Christian
do the show?
McCaffrey in the field.
Yeah.
Yep.
Why do we even do this show? So how about this? Well, does anybody draft Justin Jefferson over Christian McCaffrey at 1 this year?
I have seen it in mock drafts already, but I do.
What? No.
It's insane if they do.
Yep.
It's insane if they do.
I just posted it in the private chat there for you guys.
Love it. Awesome. Next week, moving on to the wide receiver position, the one that always has a million guys going a million different places.
Yeah, it's so many.
Always.
There's
'cause
some
analysis
headliners,
paralysis
though, in
on
this
this
class
show.
where it
There's some good
hasn't
ones.
had that. Yeah, it hasn't had that in the last few years.
There's some good ones at the receiver position. Joining us, Miss Kendall Valenzuela for Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life. That last name going to change fairly soon, I believe. Getting married sometime soon, I think, at the end of this year.
She's going wedding dress shopping. That's why we're starting at 8:00 next week.
Oh, well.
The wedding dress shopping is brutal. Been there. It's brutal. Actually,
well-
it's kind of fun, but it's kind of not. I guess it depends.
Well, you get to hear Kendall's breakdown of her wedding dress shopping next Wednesday at a special time of 8 p.m. because she is wedding dress shopping, folks. Some things take precedent more than the fantasy football podcast.
Yeah.
Who would
I'm
have
not
thought?
fucking with a bride. Come on.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought wedding planning?
Joe.
Takes the cake on that one, right? Who would have thought a guy? What am I? 50 something fucking days? Too close, honestly. Too close. I don't like it. Yeah, I don't like it. We should honestly just call it off. I think we're
Wait, you're getting married in 50-something days?
Yep.
April 12th.
Oh, that's 2 days after my birthday. That's lovely.
Oh, well, happy birthday! Just how I wanted to time it.
Yeah.
Perfectly timed.
Yeah.
It was a struggle because my fiance, she's awesome, but she was very concerned about competing with people's birthdays and our wedding date.
Oh, really? I mean, that's, yeah.
Oh, Jen, the conversations I had to do to talk her off ledges. She's
See,
like,
I
"You
got
can't-"
married in the fall and I had to contend with football. And so
That's fair. She's
I
like,
got married on a Georgia bye week because most of the people that were
Perfect.
at my wedding went to Georgia with me. So I got married on the Georgia bye and it was a Saturday. So Sunday was still,
look
There
at
you
that.
go. NFL.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. She was worried that the wedding date would interfere with my cousin's birthday and it would take away from that. I'm like, no,
yeah,
Nice for
that's
It's-
silly.
it was too close. Yeah, don't worry. We talked her off the ledge.
Okay,
Love her.
we're
She's
good.
great. It's
I'm
fantastic.
glad you're moving forward. I'm glad that was not a deal breaker for you.
Don't worry. I don't hold grudges or remember anything
Birthdays.
remotely important. Yeah. No, perfect.
They probably should have just got married on Joe's birthday so we would never forget
Keep
it,
everything.
so.
Dude, I'm great at remembering. Get out of here. For Josh, Jen, Ryan, myself, you can follow Club Fantasy on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Club Fantasy FFL. The URL is clubfantasyffl.com. Always remember, defense wins championships. Offense Wins Fantasy Football. We will see you next week.